Hello again, everyone. This is Cynics, and this is going to be part three of our Space Pirate Design Lab. It looked like the winner in terms of voting was this pirate guy by Nepo Monk. So that's kind of the one we're going to be messing with and trying to make into a more finished design. Although I had a lot of, I don't know, I wouldn't say trouble, although the right word is probably trouble, with just kind of developing it. And I think that's just because of the holiday rush and everything. I didn't really have a lot of free time to sit around drawing as much, so every time I tried to sit down and draw, it was kind of felt rushed and, it was just kind of a mess. And I'd been doing a lot of mechanical stuff, so it's kind of hard to keep transitioning back from mechanical and then to organic stuff. But anyway, I started out because I was like on a little mechanical thing. I started out by just messing around making mechanical legs because I thought that would just be a fun way to start out. And I guess that's pretty much all I had been doing at the time is making little mechs and things. Doing a lot of those on stream. But anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd make some really simple mechanical legs. So it's like a basic single joint with a slight little curved ankle area just to give it a little more pep in the step, I guess is the right thing to say. um, but yeah, so I just went with the one pixel brush for this just because it lets me kind of focus on the design a lot. I don't know why I like using that brush so much. It just, I don't know, for some reason it just gets my brain working in a more I don't know, simple way where I'm not worried at all about line weight and things like that. And then it just gets me focused on like the outlines of the design in much the same way that doing silhouettes do. But when I do these pixels line work, it just gets me thinking about the more detailed oriented approach of like the design. So it's fun for me. So I have this little silhouette of the guy in the background that I blew up, just to kind of see if my proportions were at all similar to the original thumbnail. So I don't know if that's a great way to do things, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself for sticking so closely to the original thumbnail. Like I had planned to do, stuff that's more dynamic in the posing and just more, different in the final kind of illustration. But I guess I was just being lazy or something. So there's about all the props. I did the legs, and then I did the little staff, and then I did the little. I'm already forgetting what I was drawing. Oh yeah, the little sword on the one side. But anyway, I'm just gonna jump right in to draw the face. Oh man, I'm still kind of out of the out of the mode of recording videos, but I'm trying. I'm trying to get back into it. Okay, so I drew a face once again using the pixel brush, just because it lets me, I don't know, have fun, explore my creative ideas in a different way. And once again, I usually just do different approaches to almost every drawing. I'm not someone who always does the same thing every time, and I guess that could be a bad thing. I'm not sure if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but if you watch these videos, you can see I'm kind of doing different approaches to art in almost all of them. And this video especially is going to have a lot of weird approaches. So I finished my little line work, a drawing of the guy with my pixel brush, and now I'm just going to go in and paint. I'm painting under the pixel lines just for now, just so I can establish the shapes and everything. And then I'm just going to turn them off and just focus on painting. So there we go. I turn them off, and I'm just going to kind of do the same old face painting type stuff that you've probably seen in a lot of the videos. Um, so yeah, just kind of picked a nice warm tone. Nothing that interesting with the lighting scheme either. Basic top-down stuff. But you can see I quickly established like two tones. One's like my darker shadowy tone, and the other one's the more highlighty tone, which you see on most of the lighted areas. And then I'm trying to bring in a little bit of just bounced secondary light on both sides, because I'm going to pretend that he's like in a spaceship or something. It just helps to sell it as something slightly sci-fi when you got, bounced secondary lights on both sides. It makes it feel like the guy's indoors, even though there's not going to be any environment stuff. But just a simple touch like that is enough to kind of make you feel like he's somewhere. Just that secondary bounce light. Because obviously, if you're outside, you're not going to have that really kind of light bluish secondary bounce light coming all around on both sides. You're just going to have a really natural lighting from the top. So there we go. I made his ears. I made him bald. I'm just kind of filling out this skull shape. I'm giving him the light startings of a beard there, and I started with like a nice dark tone because I want to work from dark to light. So I'm just kind of putting in this undercoat of a beard, if you will. And I'm just kind of giving him his scar. I decided to just give him a scar, and have the one eye that's missing, and it's got some kind of, I don't know, biotic, super powered digital stuff inside. I don't really know what's inside the eye, but let's just assume it's something super spacey and sci-fi ish. So he's got his big dwarf beard, and once again, it is a dwarf beard. It makes him feel like a dwarf all of a sudden, but I guess that's okay. And I decided to give him a little poof of hair on the top. Just for me, he looked a bit too much like a dwarf, or I don't know why. It's something about being really bald with the big beard. I just thought he would look a little more interesting if he had like this old kind of ratty mohawk. Like maybe he had a mohawk when he was young, and now he's an old guy with a beard, and but he still kind of has that poofy hair at the top. Actually, I think that was probably influenced a lot by I don't know, Final Fantasy VI. You guys remember Strago? Strago? It's like the little wizard guy, and he had like a big poof of hair on his top, and he was like an old guy, and he had this giant mustache as well. He didn't have a beard, but he just kind of had that vibe to him with a big poof on top and the big mustache. So I think that could possibly be what inspired this. If not what inspired it, as soon as I draw it, I'm like, hey, let's look. It's like Strago or something. So anyway, just kind of filling in the details of these skin tones. I did some backlighting on the ears. You can see that subsurface scattering, which I love so much on my ears, which basically means I'm just working the colors. I take like a dark shadow and then I work it toward a purely saturated like orange tone. And that will just make it look like there's light coming in from behind the ears, and that he's got, once again, lighting all around. I don't want this to look like he's, outdoor, which is the top natural lighting. I want there to feel like these lightings, it's like all around him, like if he was on a spaceship or something. So some lights just kind of peeking through the ears, subsurface scattering the heck out of them. And I think that's it. I think we're done with our design, so I'll just give him a couple little arms here. There's one arm, really nice. And then he just needs one other arm, curved out to the side. And there we go. I think we nailed this design. Got it in one. So this is our finest. This is our final design. The proportions seem a little off, but I think that's pretty good. No, actually, I don't know why I was messing with this. Uh, I was just got bored, and I got bored during a lot of the rendering of this character because I just kept going like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. It just feels too boring, so I was just messing around a lot. But anyway, back to actually rendering. I'll give him some semblance of clothing. I'm not really crazy about any of this clothing design. It was once again kind of an afterthought. I didn't spend enough time actually designing it out. So I was just trying to think of him as like a captain. So I'm going very captain-y on his clothing. Maybe a bit too, I don't know, sea captain, admiral. And all of a sudden he started to look like he was wearing a leather coat, and I didn't want him to look like some, leather daddy. I think that's the correct word. So I was quickly like deciding out ideas on to the side, just kind of thinking, and I'm like, oh, okay, that could work. Just kind of a little, I don't know, double-breasted button-up coat thing with some texture on it. So that looks slightly less like leather, hopefully, maybe. But yeah, I like it bringing in kind of different textures and textiles when I can. Obviously, I don't do it enough, but just doing something simple on your painting, like bringing in either a pattern on your cloth or just a slight texture. Like you can see there, the underside of that coat he's wearing has that feeling of like a mattress. I don't know the correct term for it, but just that like where it's like squared out and sewn down, like really cushiony. But it just has that texture to it that just seems a little more interesting, a little more futuristic for some reason to me anyway, a little more sci-fi ish. But otherwise, his clothing is pretty boring. I brought in some more of the textury stuff down at the bottom, but that was about it. I don't know. I don't know. I've been somewhat struggling with some of these design labs, which is probably a good thing. I guess the whole point of design labs originally was like, okay, I'll try to make an idea, and I'm gonna have other people give input on it, so that I can get out of my comfort zone a little bit. And we've certainly been getting out of my comfort zone on most of these design labs. And that's tough. It's very hard to be out of your comfort zone because you don't, well, obviously you don't feel comfortable. So it's hard to make something good. You're just like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do something decent. It's just, it can be frustrating. But that's an important part of being an artist and getting better at art is kind of staying in that frustrated kind of state where you're always challenging yourself. You never want to just be doing stuff that's easy to you and you're like, "Oh, look at how quickly I can make a mech and have it look interesting. It's so fun and easy." Because you're not going to really grow. You're just going to kind of stagnate and be complacent, and no one wants that. No one wants to kind of commit those sins of a complacent artist. So yeah, I finished his clothing a bit. I gave some quick color pass to the legs, but I was like, at this point, I was almost completely, I don't know, not invested in this illustration. Like I could picture where it was going, I would say from the start. After I did the legs, I was having fun doing the legs. I had fun doing the face, and I put them together, and I could just kind of picture where it was going, and it was going to be kind of boring. And yeah, that's kind of where it's going right now. That's what I was kind of thinking is I was doing this. I'm like, am I gonna just put this up like this? Is this it? Is this the extent of this design? I don't know. So I decided just for fun, okay, let's just go back to square one. Let's scrap all that. Let's just make something instead of doing something kind of traditional and similar to what I have been doing. Let's just make something cartoony for fun. So I guess I was slightly inspired by our design entries by Chuck, which are nice and cartoony, and we sometimes have cartoony entries, and I always love seeing them because it's just fun to work in different styles now and then. So for this one, completely different technique. You can see I'm actually doing an under drawing, and I do these when I'm going to focus on line art. So if I want my line art to look decent, I first have to, sketch something out. And then I'm just going to go back in with my black scratchboard tool and just focus on getting nice clean lines. And once again, if you're doing like a painting, you don't have to worry about having nice lines. So I don't bother doing the whole like detailed kind of slow. This is a much slower approach to doing things. But doing like the blue underlying painting and doing anything like that because once again you don't need clean lines if you're going to paint. But this one's just going to be line work, so a lot of people do cartoony type stuff like that. And I sometimes dabble in cartoony stuff, but I think this is one of the. Never mind, I've done it on a video before, but this is certainly the first one like this in a design lab. So yeah, you can see I'm kind of messing a lot with that hand. I was trying to decide how like crazy and cartoony it needs to be. Um, and I guess I should note a couple things about doing cartoony stuff. Everything's a bit exaggerated. So if you're not used to doing cartoony stuff, you're basically just exaggerating things, making things have more ridiculous scale. For instance, he had that poof of hair on the top of his head. I made it slightly even more poofy, and I made like his roundness. He's slightly fatter, and I guess the best example of this kind of cartoony playfulness is in the staff or his cane, I should say. That's not a staff. He's not a wizard. You got to stop thinking about him as Strago. But you can see his staff. God, I said it again. You can see his cane there. It's much more like twisted and knotted, and it's like got that much more cartoony feel. And that's like the definition of going from something being realistic to cartoony. It's just that exaggeration that you see. And even his sword is like a little like chubby dagger instead of the long sword. And you just when you do stuff like this, you want to keep that cohesiveness a cohesiveness. So I'm messing around a lot with this hair. I think this was kind of slow part. So, so yeah, like with the dagger, you can see it's short, it's stubby, it's kind of chubby, and that kind of represents his character too. Just everything's short and stubby. You don't want a long, thin sword because the character is not long and thin. He's short and fat and stubby. So the same goes for his cane, for his legs, and kind of for everything about him. You want that kind of that design cohesiveness. So like if you were gonna do I don't know where I was going to go with that example, but like a robot and you were going to do, lots of round shapes, you'd want that to be like a design element that you're repeating throughout the whole piece, round shapes. And for this guy, it's short and fat, so everything's going to be short and fat. But I think you get the you get the point. So I was just kind of messing around with different techniques here. I did like a, I don't know, color layer or something, and just kind of colored the line work in. And that's something you can do if you're doing like cartoony line work stuff, just because it makes the black lines a lot less, I don't know, harsh. Well, it like, because when you have those black lines, they look very not playful, not fun, not cartoony. They're just too drab and lifeless and you know yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you give them a little color, just a little bit, there's still going to be lines. You can still distinctly tell that they're lines. But if you give them a little bit of color, it just makes the whole thing seem a little less harsh and, I don't know, evil. That's not the word at all that I was looking for. But anyway, I'm doing a flat color pass, and that is just to get the ideas of what the colors will be on this character. It's also for the purpose of giving me a mask, because I did all these colors on one layer. Now I have a mask layer. I can take this and select preserve transparency, and then I can just quickly use it to do other things, such as like a value layer. So this is one technique which is popular is you do a value layer and then a color layer. And this works good for like cartoony stuff. It was used a lot on different, I don't know what I'm saying. For instance, I did, or, God. Okay, hold on. I'm going to do this. This is going to be good. Okay, for instance, if you're familiar with the game Skullgirls, I believe that came out earlier in 2012. It was like a 2D fighting game. But they had all the art assets, all the characters were hand drawn, and they did a value map of all of them, like this black and white grayscale value map. And then they had a color map, which was just on a separate layer. And by using them on separate layers like that, they were able to quickly have alternate colors, just available. The color map would just have like a key to it, and then you could program in like every instance of this color, uh, change it with this other color, and you can quickly have like a selection of colors without having to like render everything um, quickly and complicated, and you already have all the shadows worked in. Sorry, I'm laughing at myself because I'm doing this all in like one long take, and I didn't realize how long the video would be. Oh my god. It's my birthday today, by the way. I just thought I'd throw that out there while I'm talking about nothing. So maybe that's why I don't know, nuts. Okay, but anyway, have my character here, did a shadow map, did a color map, and now he's, kind of finished. I didn't really add highlights properly. I didn't add alterations in colors, and that's kind of one of the sad things about doing a color map in a value map is you don't have those nice, I don't know, hue shifts between colors like you do when you're doing painting stuff. But I guess that's about it. And I think the whole reason I did this other character and the little cartoony one were just because I could kind of demonstrate what we're going for in Design Lab, which is to create a design, a finished design. So the style doesn't really matter, but at least what we got out of finishing this is we have our finished design, and that's what really matters. We took a thumbnail and we kind of refined it in different ways, and I feel like right now we have a good idea of a finished design which could be used. And I don't even think it does the thumbnail justice. The thumbnail could have probably been something a bit more interesting. But I made this design and I'll just, leave it at that. I think I like the first coat more. I gave him two different coat designs. The first one's more serious, and the second one is more cartoony. So I guess they fit like that. I tried to keep the textures. You can see he has like an undershirt that's like the nice clothy, bumpy texture. Once again, looks like a mattress or something, like a really small mattress, like a mattress for like a, I don't know, a cat. If cats like slept in human beds, but they had beds that were like cat sized. Um, but anyway, I think that's about it. I demonstrated something or other. I demonstrated painting a face. I demonstrated kind of industrial design stuff. And I demonstrated doing cartoony stuff. Although I didn't demonstrate doing a good illustration, but that's okay. That's my fault. I think we're about done with this episode of Design Lab. Once again, I feel like every part three episode, it just fills me with ideas of things I need to work on more than anything. Usually, you see a lot of like, I don't know, study type videos that come after Design Lab videos because all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, I got to work on this, I got to work on that. And yeah, I can see that going on again. I gotta work on my characters again. I've been kind of slacking off with poses, so I think we're gonna start doing a lot of more character posing, gestures, anatomy stuff. Maybe some anatomy tutorials in January. Um, yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this something of a video.